Hello to all my friends and family, and welcome to this very first episode of my new YouTube channel entitled My Greek Orthodox Odyssey with an Elder. I've been following a video channel on the YouTube that is presented by a Greek monk, a Greek elder by the name of Geron Nektarios, Elder Nektarios, who runs a monastery and is extremely well versed in the scriptures, the Greek Orthodox faith, and is also a brilliant communicator. And he has a series of about close to 1,000 vlogs on the Greek Orthodox faith and different elements of it. These vlogs that he puts together are in Greek, in the Greek language, and because I found them so valuable and so powerful, I thought that it would be very useful for me to be able to take his material that he presents in Greek and to try and translate it as best I can into English, using my limited Greek language skills, but hopefully being able to capture not every point he makes, but the key points he makes, and put it into perspective for Greek Orthodox Christians who may not speak Greek fluently, or for non-Greek Orthodox or non-Greeks who have an interest in Christianity and would like to understand the Greek Orthodox faith a little bit better. So the first vlog topic that I've selected to talk about is a very tricky one, a very challenging one, but I guess we've got to start somewhere. And just recently I had a death in the family. I lost an auntie of mine named Agiliki Kalpaxi, my Uncle Jimmy's wife, my Uncle Jimmy, who was my mother's eldest brother. So I don't know if I'm unique or different to anybody else, but whenever I experience a death of a loved one in my family, I become a lot more reflective than normal. And following the death of my mother back in 1999, I did commence my own journey of learning as much as I can about my faith and practicing my faith as best I can based on the knowledge that I've been able to gain through my own learnings, and also learnings that I have inherited from my parents, my relatives, my friends, my spiritual father, as well as the vlogs and books and all of the other materials that I've been able to read over the years. So the topic that I'm going to talk about today and translate today as best I can is a recent vlog that Geron Nektarios put together based on the human soul and what happens to the soul after a person dies, and to understand what the core beliefs are from the Greek Orthodox perspective. So I'm not talking about Roman Catholic perspective, not talking about Protestant, Church of England, Buddhism, or any other religion. I'm purely talking about the Greek Orthodox perspective, and more specifically based on the interpretation and on the teachings of Geron Nektarios, who has dedicated his whole life to his faith, is well versed in the scriptures and all of the elements of the faith, and is in a position to help us join the dots and clarify things that may not normally be available to people, because it comes at a deeper level, it comes at a more intellectual level than what most people tend to talk about and try and relay. So Geron Nektarios poses the question, or answers the question that people ask him, what happens to the soul of a person once they pass away? Do they see? Do they sleep? Do they hear? Do they feel? Do they smell? Can they make a connection with us? Because people often say that when a person dies, that they're up there in heaven and they're looking down on us, and you often hear that perspective. So Geron Nektarios takes us through a number of steps in an elaborate and disciplined presentation, where he talks about the soul, he talks about the intelligent soul that we humans have, and the 4 phases, as he describes, of the journey of the soul, from the moment we are conceived to the moment we die, to the moment we reach the second coming. So initially he will talk to us about, or he talks about, the fact that God created all creation. He created the heavens, the earth, the planets, the stars, the moon, the trees, the grasses, the waters, the fish, the animals. He created everything through word. So he commanded certain things happen, and they happened. And that's the story of Genesis in the Old Testament. And Elder Nektarios reminds us that the Word of God, who created everything, is Jesus. Jesus is the Word of God. So in the Old Testament, wherever God talks, wherever God acts, it's not God the Father, it's God the Word. So it's the voice of Jesus that commands things into being. And he also mentions the fact that whilst animals and fish and insects may have a soul, or do have a soul, the soul that they have is completely different to the human soul, the intelligent, rational soul that a human being has. And he says that whilst God the Word commanded for animals to populate the planet, when it came to human beings, it wasn't a command that God used to bring Adam into being. Adam is made up of two separate parts. He's made up of a body and an intelligent soul. And that body was crafted by God by taking the soil, the dust, the dirt, and poetically shaping a human being in the form of Adam, and then blowing into his mouth the Spirit of God, the human spirit, which is the rational soul, hence making the first human person in the form of Adam. And Geron Nektarios clearly states that God didn't make man, so Adam wasn't a man. So God didn't intend on just making man. He created τον άνθρωπο. He created a person. He created a human. And then, following that, in order to give Adam company, he created Eve from Adam. So he took from Adam his rib and created Eve to be the complement and the supplement to complete Adam. So you had then two people created, and one was the complement and the opposite of the other, and hence Eve was defined by her relationship to Adam as being a woman. And because Eve was a woman, then Adam was then deemed to be a man. Because if Adam was by himself, he'd just be an anthropo. He wouldn't be neither male or female. It's just that through God's providence and God's love for mankind, that he introduced a partner to Adam to enable shared experiences, to enable shared wonderment, so that both Adam and Eve could work together to be stewards, to name the animals, the plants, and to share in God's creation and to worship and glorify God. So he makes a very clear point that the soul of a person, a human, is completely different to the soul of an animal. When an animal dies, its soul ends there. The soul is part of the life of that animal or plant or fish. Whereas when a human perishes and dies or falls asleep, the soul separates from the body, so the body dies and is reduced to its basic elements again, is reduced to dust temporarily until the second coming. But the soul lives on, continues, because it's God-given. Man was created in the image of God. So hence man continues, the soul continues and lives on. And this is where Elder Nektarios talks about the four phases of the human soul. And he says the first phase is when the human soul is enacted or created upon conception. So when a sperm and an egg come together and divide, that is when the human body and the human soul are enacted or initiated. And the soul and the body live together in harmony throughout that person's life until there comes a point where the human body dies, and then the soul separates from the body separation of the soul, and for 40 days after the person dies, the soul travels, moves about, and it is a period where we need to pray for that soul. Elder Nektarios makes a very valid point, is that once the soul leaves the body, it doesn't go to heaven, and it doesn't go necessarily, or it doesn't go to hell. Both the gates of hell and heaven are shut. They are shut. Until, for most people, until the second coming. There are, however, some souls that make it to heaven, and the ones that make it to heaven are the ones of the saints of the church, the ones who have dedicated their life to the worship of God, to the glory of God. And just bear with me. And they become one with God through theosis, as I was mentioning just now. And that enables those souls to enter heaven. But they enter heaven until the second coming. And at the second coming, they will receive their spiritual body, where we all will receive a spiritual body that'll join our soul with our body. The author says, though, before the second coming, so between when you die up to the 40 days after your death, on that 40th day, from that 40th day to the second coming, is a in-between place. I don't know if it's been given a name, but we go into a place of a middle ground, I think. Father Nektarios, or Elder Nektarios, describes it as we go to a middle ground, and that middle ground is a place where you get a foretaste of where you may end up if you've lived a Christian and a spiritual life, a life of church, a life of sacraments, a life loving God, loving the saints, and worshipping God, glorifying God, acknowledging, loving your neighbour as you love yourself, and all of those things. You confess and you do all of those sorts of things, then you have a propensity to go to heaven, and hence God, depending on God's grace, of course, and God's providence, may grant your soul a foretaste of paradise everlasting. If, on the other hand, you've been negligent through your earthly life, and you haven't been close to the church, you've been an atheist, you haven't done your confessions, you haven't done Holy Communion, you've lived a life away from God, then chances are that you will be receiving a foretaste of hell, of life away from God, because years ago Archbishop Stylianos said the difference between heaven and hell is the absence of God, the absence of love. In our lives, we come across a lot of people who love us, who cherish us, who want us in their lives, who reach across to us, to hug us, to bring us close to them. And you notice that some people, regardless of how hard you try to bring them into your life, to show them caring, to show them nurture, to show them affection, they just turn their face away and they push you away for whatever reason, right or wrong. Similarly, there are people who do the same with God, according to Father or Elder Nektarios. They never liked God in their earthly life, and if you don't like somebody for whatever reason, then chances are, regardless of what they do to bring you close to them, to make you one with them, you're going to resist that. You're going to push them away. And hence, even if there was an ability, even if there was a capability of joining God in heaven, there are many people who resist it and who don't want it. And hence, those people will receive a foretaste of hell, of life away from God. So that is a period that can last, as I said, from day 40, where your soul reaches a point of, I guess, resting. And from that point of that 40 days to the second coming, you can receive, as I said before, a foretaste of paradise everlasting or hell. Father Nektarios also goes on to say that the human soul is recognizable. Just like we've got software these days that can identify people using different characteristics, regardless of whether or not they got a beard, that they're old or young. Just recently I went through my Google Photos and started naming certain people within my network and putting a name next to them, and then the Google software would just go and just collect all the photos, all the thousands of photos that I've got, would go through and search all those thousands of photos and tag each of those photos with the name of the person who I had named, just using the software. And similarly, our Elder Nektarios says that our souls are recognizable. So the souls recognize. So when your soul leaves your body, it is able to be recognized by other souls. You can recognize your mother, your father, your uncle, your aunt, your godfather, your spiritual father, the saints, all of the other people who have ever lived will have a unique soul which is recognizable. But Elder Nektarios then goes on to say something really profound and really important for each and every one of us to understand. He says that once the soul leaves the body, it doesn't necessarily see, hear, feel, or interact with other souls or people who are living. That will only occur, according to Elder Nektarios, if God gives permission for that to happen. So that's a really profound and a really powerful point to consider and to think about. That when somebody dies, they don't necessarily connect with anybody, they don't necessarily see anything, unless God allows it, gives permission for that to happen. And the reason for that is that we all have to understand that when a soul leaves this time and space, and it goes beyond time and space, then, as we say, we want that soul to rest in peace. We don't want those souls of the people who have died to watch us every day, to watch us sinning, to watch us fighting, to watch us cheating on each other, to watch us being selfish, because all of those things, the things that are not God-pleasing, would be distressing to a soul, the soul of somebody who has passed away. And for that reason, Jesus only gives permission to souls to see, hear, feel, think, communicate in things that are going to be beneficial and nurturing to the soul. So what Elder Nektarios is suggesting here is saying is that when a person dies, it is critical for us who are left behind, the church, the family, the loved ones, the relatives, to continue to pray for the salvation of the soul of the person who's passed away, to continue to plead, to continue to entreat God to save that person. And the comforting thing for me is that, being Greek Orthodox, I dearly know that the Greek Orthodox Church will never ever forget me. Even if my family does, even if all the souls who have gone before me can't do anything about it, the Greek Orthodox Church will continue to constantly pray for the salvation of my soul, as well as the souls of all people. So the reason why we have memorial services, the reason why we have mnemosyna, funerals, and all of those things, is to ask God for the memory to be eternal. And when we say memory be eternal, what we're saying is that we're asking God to please never ever forget the person, and to remember them, to acknowledge them, to resurrect them at the second coming. I'll just hang a right here. Going to Silverdale. I'm taking the long road again, but it's okay, nobody's chasing me. I'm going to my Uncle Jimmy's. Hopefully I'll get to see my cousins there. We'll talk about Auntie Angela. We'll talk about the funeral arrangements that are coming up. But the other thing we need to understand is that in order for miracles to happen, in order for visitations to occur, we need to live a Christian life. We need to be humble. We need to ensure that our houses are clean. We need to ensure that we're not fighting. We're not doing things that are not God-pleasing. That we need to have icons. We need to scent our houses. We need to have a vigil lamp lit up, so that our houses, our homes, our lives are welcoming places for saints, for God, for Panayia, and for our loved ones to come and visit us. As I said before, God will not allow your mother, your father, your late mother, your late father, your grandparent to visit you, to see you, to interact with you, unless it's going to be of benefit to both you, the spirit, and not to create disharmony. So it's important, as we said, to pray. And this is another very, very important point that the author Geron Nektarios makes. He says that nothing happens in the world, nothing happens in the universe, nothing happens in time and outside of time without God's permission, without Jesus' permission, without the permission of the Holy Trinity, the Triune God. And he explains and he uses a metaphor that just like a telecommunication hub, a telecommunication exchange, when you have a prayer, when you have a pain, when you have a need, that pain is transmitted by your prayers, your concerns to God. And when we talk about God the Word, which is Jesus. So it's transmitted to Jesus, and then Jesus gives permission for whatever it is to manifest. He gives permission to the saints that you pray to. He gives permission to the Panagia that you pray to. He gives permission to souls which have not even come into heaven to connect with us. He even gives permission to the devil and to the demons, which I found really profound. Geron Nektarios says that even Satan needs to ask Jesus permission to tempt you and I, and to do his deeds. Nothing happens without God's permission. And that's why when we recite the Lord's Prayer, we ask God, lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. We're praying to God, saying, please God, do not give permission to Satan and to the demons to torment us and to cause us grief. So once again, he said that only when God gives permission can the soul of a person who has died see, smell, hear, feel, connect with other people, other souls. So, just using our logic, the sorts of places where we can connect with the souls of our loved ones and the souls of the saints, and that is in places that are approved by God, that are God-pleasing. The Holy Liturgy, church life, being humble, being of service, being a good person, all of those sorts of things. So if you engage the virtues and oppose the vices, then you're going to be more of a magnet to things that are going to be of greatness to your eternal journey and your eternal life. So the call to action, of course, is to live a Christian life. You know, being Christian is not a baptism. Being Christian is not just being good. You know, it's a whole lifestyle. It's a dedicated lifestyle where you dedicate your life to glorifying and serving God with all your heart, mind and soul, and also serving your community, your family and others, your neighbour. loving others as you love yourself, which also suggests that you need to love yourself. You need to love yourself a lot in order to be able to have the love to be able to love others, for your cup to overfilleth with love, so that you're not only happy within yourself, but you're also willing to generously share that love and fulfillment with others around you. So I think I've covered most of the material. I think I've covered most of the material. Let me just have a think. And once again, we need to understand that our purpose in life is to become one with God, to reach a pinnacle of theosis. Theosis meaning being one with God. And the way we become one with God is by serving God. When a person is christened, when they are baptized within the Greek Orthodox Church, the priest will cut hair from their head, and that cutting of the hair is the submission of that person to God's will. It's the agreement of that person's parents, the person's godparent, that person, the child being christened and baptized, will be a servant or a maiden of God, who will spend their entire life serving God and serving each other, and not being selfish, but being generous in their spirit and generous in their works. So this is where the author Geron Nektarios also says that there will be times in your life, if you're lucky, to have visitations. You know, we've grown up and we hear of people who have seen the Virgin Mary, who have seen St. George, who have seen Father Saint Nektarios, that have seen Jesus, that have seen their mother and father. How many people have you heard on their deathbed that actually see their mother, their father? They see saints and they recognize them, and even in their delirium, even in their in that state that they're in, they clearly show with their eyes, with their movements, with their exclamation, that they are joyed to see who they see. Because this is where Geron Nektarios says that Jesus has given permission to their parents to come and visit them, to come and welcome them, to relieve them of their suffering, to help them. And it doesn't happen to everybody. Not everybody has visitations or a visitation. No, but sometimes you will be awakened by a vivid and a powerful dream, and you will know that it is something more than just your mind or a figment of your imagination, that it is something much stronger. And for many people, it's a turning point in their lives. It's a realization. It's an awakening. So not only does Jesus give permission to the Panagia, or the saints who are in heaven with him, to visit and to grant miracles, he sometimes, on rare occasions, also gives the ability for a parent, a loved one, to visit another loved one in a special hour of need. The author Geron Nektarios also offers up a warning as well, and he says that the only way you can connect with saints, with God, with your loved ones, is through the church, through the sacraments, through Jesus, through your prayer. And he warns against people using mediums, because he says that people using mediums who claim to have made contact with a dead one, with a person who has passed, are often dealing with demons. You hear lots of stories of people going to a medium, and that medium telling them that they see a person, their name is the name of your parent, or your grandparent, and that they give you some specific instructions, or they say things to you that only that person who has passed would know those things, and there's no way in the world that the medium could have done any research to find those things out, because they're so personal. But what Elder Nektarios is saying is that we mustn't be fooled, because the devil, the demons, of course they know your parents' name. Of course they know the details of where things are kept, or things happened throughout your life and their life. And they fool you into thinking that you're talking with that particular soul, that particular person. But all they're doing is manipulating you and leading you to further sin, and to be demonized, and to be distracted, and to be separated from God, the church, your priest, the saints, and our faith. So the warning is very, very clear from Geron Nektarios. Do not in any way, shape or form listen to people who act as mediums, because it's witchcraft. It's something which is not permitted, not endorsed, and not supported by the Greek Orthodox Church. So be careful, and be on constant awareness in order to protect yourself and protect the souls of those who have passed away, because you don't want to make them agitated. You don't want to cause them grief. You don't want to take them away from their time in heaven, or their foretaste of heaven. And that's why it's important, when somebody passes away, you don't talk evil of them. You don't bring up the past. It's critical that we have to forgive and forget, that we forgive them, and we hopefully ask for their forgiveness, so that our souls can live in peace and their souls can live in peace as well. Because when somebody dies and you keep on bringing up the past and you keep on carrying on, it's neither good for you nor for them. As we said, we need to forgive and forget. We are all unworthy. Nobody is worthy of being saved, but we need to pray for each other. We need to support each other. We need to turn a blind eye to things that may have offended us, because not everything that everybody else does is done with the purpose of offending us or of hurting us. It just works out that way sometimes. So Elder Nektarios says that we must forgive, we must pray, and continually pray for those who have passed away, to give them the greatest chance of continuing to have a foretaste of paradise everlasting, even though God knows everything. But we still need to help, we still need to pray, we still need to entreat and ask God to remember them, and to remember them fondly, because sometimes people make mistakes. Sometimes we get distracted, we get carried away, life gets in the way, and before you know it, you've made a mess of it all. But with the prayer of others, with the prayer of our parents, our grandparents, our churches, we can hopefully be better off and relieved of the burden of hell, or a life in hell. forever ever. Anyway, take care everybody. Wishing you all the best. I appreciate this opportunity to have a chat with you on this very first video on my Greek Orthodox Odyssey with an elder, where I have, to the best of my ability, taken the material that has been presented by Elder Nektarios on his vlog channel and translated it as best I can for the benefit of those who are interested in learning about the Greek Orthodox faith and the detailed elements of the belief structures that are supported by church tradition and the Gospels, the Bible, the New Testament, the Old Testament, and the Church Fathers. So once again, thank you. I appreciate taking this time, and I appreciate you giving me your time. But as I said, I do this with love, and hopefully this can be a legacy that I can pass on to my children, my grandchildren, friends and family, and anybody else who has an interest in learning a little bit more about their faith or about the Christian faith. And as I say, I'm not a theologian, I'm not a priest, I'm a basic sinner like most people, but I do have a curiosity, I do have an interest, and I do want to make a difference where I can. Anyway, take care everybody, Yassas, and I look forward to coming to you from a different place with a different message of love, where I take the messages, the many messages, the many well-researched messages from Elder Nektarios and translate them into English and share them with the wider community. Take care and bye for now.